Hey guys, today we're going to cover topic 2-2, which talks about angle relationships. The first thing we want to talk about is adjacent angles. There are two angles that are next to each other and share a common side. So I did this example here with angle 1 and angle 2, and they are adjacent because they share the same ray, okay, the same side here. So another example here is if I have this right angle and I draw a ray through it, so now I have two angles that share the same side. So another word for adjacent would be together, combined, next to each other, side by side. And here's one more example, so I can name that angle 1 and 2. Okay, so those two would also be adjacent. Complementary angles are two angles whose sum is 90 degrees. And these don't have to be adjacent. So I could have an angle that's 50 degrees, and then a complementary angle to that would be one with 40 degrees, because together they add up to 90. And they could be together, they just don't have to be attached. So another example is here I have this right angle, and so 35 and 55 together gives you 90. Supplementary angles don't have to be adjacent as well. So if I have an angle that's 110 degrees, then I would have another one that has to be 70 because together they add up to 180. Another example I can have is if I have this angle that's 120 degrees, then the other one is going to have to be 60 degrees. Again, they have to add up to 180 degrees. A linear pair are two angles that are adjacent and supplementary. So they are attached and they add up to 180 degrees. They form a straight line. So here's an example. I have a straight line, and we already learned that a straight angle has a measure of 180 degrees. So if I draw another ray here, then I've just created a linear pair. This angle plus this angle, they add up to 180. Okay, so again, if I have, let's say this one's 135 degrees, then I probably have this angle over here that's 45 degrees. So the sum here is always 180 degrees. And the last definition are vertical angles. They are two angles across from each other on intersecting lines. So if I have two lines that intersect here, this line intersects with this line, then they are the ones that are opposite from each other. So I call it like the kissing angles. These two are vertical. So if I call that angle 1 and 2, then they're always going to have the exact same measure. If one of them is 55 degrees, then the other one has to be 55 degrees as well. And the other ones that are across from each other are also vertical, so I can call this angle 3 and angle 4. Okay? And if you notice, angle 1 and angle 3, they form a linear pair. Okay? So together, angle 1 plus angle 3 have to add up to 180 degrees, if you can notice the straight line here. Therefore, angle 3 has to be 125 degrees because 125 plus 55 is 180. And angle 4 has to be the exact same as angle 3 because they are vertical. So angle 4 is also 125 degrees. So these practice problems are for homework, and we're just going to go over a few of them together. So we're going to do number 2 together. It says angle P and angle Q are supplementary. And I'm just going to draw a quick picture just this one time. So we have angle Q, whose measure is 9x minus 3, and angle P, whose measure is 4x plus 3. We need to find the measure of angle Q. So to do that, we need to find x. And since they are supplementary, that means that they add up to 180 degrees. So we get x is 14. So we plug that in for our x, and we get the measure of angle Q is 123 degrees. All right, so for number 5, I have two intersecting lines. Therefore, I know that 72 and this angle over here are vertical. So therefore, y has to be 72 degrees as well because vertical angles are always congruent. I also know that this angle and this angle together, they form 180 degrees. So if I do 182 take away 72, I can find x. So I get x is 108 degrees. Now to find my z, if you look, I have this 90-degree here. That means that on the other side, that whole angle is also 90 degrees. Therefore, 72 plus z has to give me 90 degrees. So I can do 90, take away 72, and I find z. So I get z is 18 degrees. Number 8 says angle P and angle Q are supplementary angles. If the measure of angle Q is 64, find the measure of angle P. Well, supplementary means two angles have to add up to give me 180. So therefore, 180 minus 64 gives me angle P. I get 116 degrees. Number 12 says that if the measure of angle DEG is 5x minus 4, and the measure of angle GEF is 7x minus 8, and the measure of angle DEH is 9y plus 5, then find x and y. Now, because you cannot solve for two unknown variables at the same time, like you cannot set up an equation that has an x and a y. So we have to use the two equations that both have an x. And we know that together, those are a linear pair. They equal 180 degrees. So I can add those up, set them equal to 180. Now that we know that x is 16, we can go back and plug it in. I'm going to go ahead and plug it into 7x minus 8. So we get 104 degrees. Therefore, this angle is equal to that one, and so that has to be 104 too. So to solve for y, we can do 9y plus 5 equals 104 degrees. And so we get y equals 11. All right, guys, make sure that you complete the rest on your own. Thanks for watching.